hadn't been in the era where the PC was king.
Well, Mossberg and Swisher here. They are two of tech's most informed and respected journalists. They have started a new venture, ReCode. It is an independent site that seeks to reimagine tech journalism. Walt and Kara formerly founded All Things Digital, the legendary news site and conference series for the Wall Street Journal. I'm pleased to have them back at this table. Welcome.
Thank you.
So how did this happen?
Well, we spent about a dozen years, as you just said, doing All Things Digital, and All Things Digital
conference.
Right, conferences, and then a website and conferences, and you know, Dow Jones, which is the company that owns the Wall Street Journal, allowed us to be sort of an autonomous entrepreneurial unit within there. But eventually, we just made a decision ourselves that we needed to have a different structure to grow this thing to its fullest potential, and that structure was to be independent, have our own company, and raise the funding we needed to build the thing further.
And you found that at Comcast or somewhere?
Well, we have two minority investors, and I would also actually call them partners. One is Terry Semmel, who is
as a
currently
venture firm called Windsor Partners.
Windsor Media, and Terry was the head of Warner Brothers Pictures and Yahoo for a while. And the other is
co-head of Warner Brothers Pictures with Bob Daly.
Right, co-head, correct. And the other was the other one is NBC News. Pat Philly Crushel is the head of that, and the two of them are minority investors. And then with NBC, we also have a partnership agreement for our journalism.
Right. They needed more tech news. They're very interested in it and hadn't been very aggressive.
Okay, so you went to the Wall Street Journal and said, we're going to go out on our own to do this. Did they say, no, you can't do that. We're going to make it so attractive you can't own to do this. Did they say, no, you can't do that. We're going to make it so attractive you can't leave? Or what did they say?
I think over the years, you know, we had never gotten an investment from Dow Jones over the two different owners they had. We'd been profitable. We made money, and Walt and I did really well in terms of making money there. But there was never any investment in an idea we thought was much bigger. And so when you're sort of covering an industry where you think about growth and where you can go, if the company that owns you doesn't really want to invest, like they're happy just making money, it's harder. And so we had a way to do it that was much more, we wanted to trade the profits we were making for equity. And I think that was one of the issues, is they want to own 100%. They're like any media company. They always want to own.
Or to be fair, they might want to own 80% or something. All these media companies.
They want to control.
Yeah,
they want to control.
Right.
And, you know, we had been, Walt shows we were sort of a division. We were like the crazy cousins, except we did really well. And so what we wanted was...
And attract a lot of attention.
We attracted a lot of attention, and we got so much interest that it just wasn't comfortable for them in the setup we wanted, and wasn't comfortable for us in the setup they wanted.
So
it just wasn't comfortable for them in the setup we wanted, and wasn't comfortable for us in the setup they wanted.
Yeah, so it was kind of inevitable, and it was, and I have to say it's been pretty much amicable and mutual. We kind of mutually realized that it was time to part ways. I mean, they and most media companies, and I think this speaks well to the way NBC handled this, to be honest, most media companies, and maybe most companies, when there's a startup thing, they really want to, like Kara said, control it. And I don't consider it unusual that Dow Jones or News Corp would have had that point of view.
So this was all amicable in the end?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well,
yes,
I'm not sure I'd be so amicable.
As amicable as you can be leaving News Corp.
Well, not only did you leave, though, you took away about half of all of the employees that were working with.
No, but they were not News Corp employees.
They were employed by you?
They had been contractors working for us. And
so that means they got to start all over, doesn't it?
But they've hired, to their credit, and they allocated money. They've hired some fine tech reporters and reviewers.
It was separate. It was operated separately. You know, we were a startup within a large organization, and unfortunately, that doesn't work.
So what is it you're going to do? You're going to have a conference like the All Things D conference.
Already sold out.
Already sold out.
Yeah, 3 hours. It was really long this year.
Oh, my goodness.
No, it wasn't as fast as
No, it took three hours to sell out.
And we raised the price.
And we raised the price. It still sold out in 3 hours.
We have a big wait list.
And so will it be any different than previous All Things D conferences?
Look, the foundation of it, and you're the master of this, so you know, is good interviews and conversations, and that's still going to be the foundation. But we have some ideas for some changes. We see this as an opportunity, and I know this sounds hokey, but it really is true, to continue the kind of quality and approach we've had, but to reset and say, you know, everybody we cover changes what they do every month, every 6 months, whatever it is, every 6 months, whatever it is. That's the way the tech world works. We're going to do the same thing.
But you want to make this, as I understand it, and tell me where I'm wrong, you want to make this as a kind of clearinghouse for all information about technology.
Yes,
you know?
Sort of. The technology you need to know.
The technology you need to know. And I'll give you an example of something we've already done. We've been in business a month, but something we've already done that we weren't able to do before, and that is we've hired reporters, one reporter to cover the current cutting edge of tech, not just the normal stuff, but science and biotech and that kind of stuff that we weren't covering before. So we've already added another coverage.
I think we do on this program.
Yeah,
you
like,
do. You do fantastic work.
It's what's the crazy stuff Google's doing this week,
Yeah,
kind of
exactly.
beat, or what's Jeff Bezos up to.
But it goes beyond just covering the mainstream of tech. And then
the cutting edge. Yeah.
we are also we've also hired someone to talk about the kind of junction of tech and community, tech and society, which is another area which I'm not saying nobody's writing about these things, but we had not been doing it. So we're even in the first month. We're expanding the
central point is don't just go to this new venture looking for a conference. You go here looking for the latest information and
trusted information.
Ideas.
It's a very different thing because there's still, you know, the mainstream media is, no, you can't. But not just the internet, everywhere. I mean, I think what happened was these blogs in tech especially have gotten better and better as mainstream media has gotten less and less influential. And so there's a you know, we have proven that a small group of people can have a massive influence by just being good at what they do, which is, you know, for example, last week, we're the ones that said Satya Nadella was going to get this job at Microsoft. We're the ones that talked, because I'm so clever, I don't know, just because we're great reporters, and we have a great team of reporters. Same thing with reviews. Our reviews, I think, are better because we do reporting on the reviews. Walt has a very rigorous review system. I think are better because we do reporting on the reviews. Walt has a very rigorous review system that is like reporting. And I think people are dying for quality content, and we're bringing it to them in a fresh way. We're very cognizant of mobile. We're very cognizant of smaller stories, but sometimes some are larger. So we're very, we move fast.
Okay, let's just talk about the broader picture of what you're a central part of, which is the idea of web journalism, or whatever you want to call this. I mean, because you've got Ezra Klein is moving to Vox something, and David Pogue has gone to Yahoo, and different people are going to different places. Give me a sense of, as you have been talking about, what it's about and what impact it will have on the connoisseur, the consumer, as well as what impact it will have on mainstream media.
Well, let me start, because we both have thoughts on this. I think there are two things. One is the web itself. And by the way, I don't believe that print is inevitably dead, or that every print or traditional, and by the way, I don't believe that print is inevitably dead, or that every print or traditional broadcast outlet is necessarily dead. But clearly the web is an enormously dynamic, important place for journalism that is winning right now. And so that's one of these things. I mean, the one common factor in all these things is that it's web first and web centric and web only, perhaps. Second, but there's a second thing here which has to do with the combination of journalism and entrepreneurship, and saying Ezra or Nate Silver or maybe us, these are people that have built a following, a brand, and may have the opportunity to raise money or to get partners who will fund their efforts and let them go off and do what they want. And they don't need to be in a bigger
But I mean,
a bigger structure.
Obviously, you don't mean what this applies to everybody, because the difference is, I mean, Nate Silver went from one big place, the New York Times, to another big place, ESPN. And what this applies to everybody, because the difference is, I mean, Nate Silver went from one big place, the New York Times, to another big place, ESPN.
And I don't know what his deal is there.
By the way, he has real control over that. He's going to have real control. Ezra's going to have real control. When you start to do this, it's infectious. That you really, once you start to have real control, and what it like Uber upended transportation. We see upending all day long, and so why not upend?
Disruptive technologies.
We're disruptive. We really, I think we probably are, but in a good way. It's not disruptive just for the sake of being disruptive. Is that we feel. You know, at one point, I think it was talking to Rupert or something like that. He's like, well, how do, I think we had Rupert Murdoch. Oh. You know, we hang out all the time. But he was saying, I remember him going, you know, Kara, how do you get all these scoops with just 8 reporters? And I said, well, how do we? That's a good question. And he goes, well, what's the answer? I go, maybe you should ask why you need so many. Like, that's a good question. How do we?
You know what's interesting about that? That's who he is, and that's why he is who he is.
He's disruptive.
Because he was disruptive.
Well,
no, because he was curious.
Right.
He's curious.
He wanted to know, how come you can do it, and how do I figure out how you can do it so I can do it as well or better?
Maybe he wanted to save money. Maybe he wanted to save money. I don't know what.
No, but he takes risks, and we
to be the best.
And we respect that.
Right.
We respect that he takes risks.
Pierre Omidyar, what's he doing?
He called us, actually. He did. I know him from a long time ago when he was way back, when he was before eBay. Yeah. And he's trying to. I do. Yes, especially you. I think that he is trying to do a much more advocacy kind of thing, which is why
advocacy journalism.
Yes, and you know, he has a great. He hired Glenn. That's where he wants to go. That he feels that there's a real importance about civicness. He did one in Hawaii that we talked about for a long time, where he lives, and a whole bunch of things like that. But he's in a different kind of zone where it's much more advocacy, much more investigative, but with a point of view. And, you know, he's got so much money, and he's very, very interested in that. And so
he
civic.
thinks the public's not being served by some of the mainstream journalism.
He's much more civic, and I admire that. It just wasn't something.
And I think you're right about advocacy. I mean, I remember the conversation we had about that. We had advocacy. I mean, I remember the conversation we had about that. We had several dozen people, some of them companies, some of them investors, wanting to, you know, give us money or invest in us, and we had to find the deal which was right for us. And we didn't think the advocacy route was right for us, and we certainly didn't think having somebody have the controlling share in our new endeavor was right for us. And you know, we wound up.
For example, there's a lot of VCs investing in this space. We felt that wasn't a good choice for us. Now, people can do that.
VCs are investing in the space that you're in.
Yes, they have. They do.
Yeah.
They
AOL bought Michael.
TechCrunch.
We know all about what AOL's been doing.
He's very interesting what he's doing there. Tim is very interesting.
Tim is a smart guy. Tim Armstrong, who runs AOL.
Well,
Patch, they got rid of Patch.
They did.
But
I'm talking,
and
I think
Terry, wasn't it?
Yes, and it's not any longer.
No.
No longer.
We're talking about technology venture.
It's not any longer.
No.
Okay.
We're talking about technology venture capitalists.
What?
Goodbye, baby.
Goodbye, baby. Sorry.
Technology venture capitalists who invest in the companies we cover. And, you know, they perfectly sincerely wanted to invest in our thing, and we just felt the conflicts would be too great.
We were talking to media companies or media investors. That's what we thought.
So venture capitalists no, but media companies yes.
Yeah, they were funny.
Don't you cover media companies too?
We do.
We do. You can't avoid any conflict. If you invested in us and we mentioned you, we'd have to disclose that.
It's the thing that matters is transparency and full disclosure.
Except no, because venture capital is a little different than every media company is now in digital, no matter how you slice it. Venture capitalists, like, we didn't want to have the same investor that was in Uber, for example. You know what I mean? Just like there's
but I don't understand this. I mean, help me understand it. I really don't. I genuinely don't understand it. I mean, why is it? This is a venture capital-like deal for Comcast.
It wasn't Comcast. We did it with NBC. Now, interestingly, one of the things we asked was we didn't want to deal with the
deal for Comcast.
It wasn't Comcast. We did it with NBC. Now, interestingly, one of the things we asked was we didn't want to deal with their venture arm, who we like, Amy Vance, who runs their Comcast Ventures. We were like, we don't want her money.
Why are they making this investment?
You'd have to ask them. I think because
they
want to change the way news is delivered. And the Pat, who's running it, really, I met her. The way she called me.
So do they have an equity interest?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So what's that? Why is that different than venture capital?
No. Here's the difference, Charlie. anytime we mention Comcast or NBC, even though Comcast is not the investor, but they're the parent, I imagine
they are the investor.
Terry Semmel, if we mention him, we will disclose that they are minority investors in the company that owns that site. The difference is if we did the deal with one or two of the big venture capital firms in the Valley or private equity firms, there would be dozens, scores of these disclosures that we'd have to make, and it's a question of degree.
We're old-fashioned that way. We wanted to, you know.
And by the way, I want to point out that we're so old-fashioned that every reporter